We love hip
DJs,
hop.
right? You guys ever heard of Sneaky D's?
Yeah.
So you know that place is in danger of closing. That's like a club for the people who are outside of Toronto. That's like a pub, I would call it, more than a club, right?
Mhm.
And it's been like a staple. Like you guys, you said it right away. Yeah. Me, yeah. And we're like 2 generations apart. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like this place has been there forever. They're thinking that they're trying to close it down.
Who's they?
The city.
Oh, for what reason?
For development. So I'm gonna play
Oh.
somebody who is trying to defend this. So this is courtesy of Toronto Man.
This looks like the kind of guy that would be trying to
I
say
know,
Sneaky D's.
for real, right? Right? So the city has postponed the ruling on the development at Sneaky D's until July 8th, 9th, on my birthday. There's still time to submit the comments to them prior to that meeting, and I'll share my more resources on that this week. So here's what homie had to say.
Oh, well, Sneaky D's can come back once we're done with the development. That is like a bully saying, give me your lunch money. Don't worry, though. I'll hold on to it for you. I'm not going to spend it right now. Like, what are we doing here? I fail to see the point. And shout out to the punks in the house today.
Is the light?
The green light is on. Yeah,
Okay,
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. So I'm a resident of Ward 9. I was born and raised in Toronto. I'm obviously speaking here because I have concerns about this application by the Goldberg Group. First and foremost, I would like to thank anybody who may have been sitting on this committee long enough to have blocked this application so far and to have empowered the survival of Sneaky D's. I believe it's the core premise of a healthy democracy in Toronto that the elected officials and the bureaucrats represent the will of the people, not the will of private actors and private interests. So for those of you who may have assisted in this process so far, thank you very much. I think we fall into this sort of myth that we have a supply and demand issue with the housing and that we can solve the housing in Toronto by building more housing. I'll quote a CBC headline from April 28th, 2026 that says, many Toronto area rental units are sitting empty, but rent prices are still sky high. So I think that we far too often as a city just sort of end up bending the knee to these proposals under this false pretense that we will somehow alleviate the pressures on the constituents and the citizens of the city who are looking for a place to live, when in fact, this just doesn't seem to be the solution. The proposal for this application was placed under administrative file closure, citing no activity by the applicant to advance this application in over 1 calendar year, and stating that staff consider the application inactive and that there will be no further steps to process it, and then a new round of planning documents with slight revisions put the project back on file. I believe amongst those was the addition of 3 stories to the building. And forgive my naivety, but if the application was deemed not appropriate, why would adding more stories to the building somehow rectify the situation? People are saying they've fallen in love here. They feel safe in the space. This is not going to be accomplished with this development. I yield my time.
Yeah, thank you.
The developer.
Well said.
Like, that guy are for loco and some monsters, and he's good.
No, but he still won't have no Sneaky D's for him to go to.
I don't know. Like, once he made the bully analogy, he lost me still.
I feel like he kind of picked up and gained steam as he continued to speak. He's pretty well spoken.
Yeah.
My question is, would this include a buyout of Sneaky D's by the developer, or are they kind of forcing the hand? Or would they pay Sneaky D's to pretty much demolish the bar?
I think they're trying to dry them out, right? Because like they did this kind of delay, like, yeah, we're going to, hold off and then we'll get back to it later type of shit. And that's the kind of same thing that they did with the LRT, where it took them forever to actually finish it, which ended up destroying the businesses. So I think that's what they're trying to do.
But like, I think nonetheless, they would have to buy it from them, So to me, this is just business, bro. Like, if there's a plot of land that I want, you have it, I approach you. If you don't want to sell it to me, then I'm going to try to find other means to like get the property. Like,
so what about our nightlife? Because Sneaky D's is one of the last places that like people know from time, like I just said, multiple generations. I'm from a time where like I used to go to Richmond and Adelaide Street to go to the clubs. And there was clubs all up and down the place. And it was a great time until they started developing more places. And then some of the residents started complaining. And then they completely moved the club district. So like, where are we? I know living in a home is more important than partying, but you know, like quality of life is still a thing.
I hear that point, and I get that we should preserve certain legacy venues. I'm not sure how busy Sneaky D's is
It's
today.
not.
So
I'm not
I
sure.
feel like that's probably a part of it as well, where they're
Yeah.
kind of like, okay, well, it isn't what it was before, so we wouldn't be losing out on too much. There are a bunch of clubs people can go to. I remember Sneaky D's specifically for, was it Wednesdays? They had like hip hop night. It was like just one night a week where like all the
Yeah,
students
it
would
was.
go.
Yeah, it was
Wednesday, they
Wednesdays.
ran their Wednesday night for that long for you guys
Yeah,
to be
when
going?
I was in university,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
would go to Sneaky D's, and it was
Wow.
sick. It
But
was,
it kind of died off like after our generation. I
yeah,
think.
we were the last generation to experience it. And other spots like, I don't know, do you remember Tequila Jack's?
Yeah, I remember that.
Is that still booming? I don't know.
There's new spots now.
That's what I'm saying.
And you said, and before you go natural, you said there's mad clubs to go to. Are there?
Yeah, there's mad spots to go to right now. So
Yeah, because I'm not outside, so you guys gotta let me know, fam.
But I don't think the younger generation, like we spoke about this before, they're not clubbing like we used to club. So maybe we're seeing a lessening of popularity.
I don't
with
know,
clubs.
bro. Like even like, okay, we're gonna get to this when we talk about like our weeks or whatever. But even like where I was last night, every girl I'm chatting to, how old are you? 22, 21. I'm like, yo, bro, my 30-year-old ass is getting old, bro.
Like the old head in the club
you
now.
know what I mean?
But was
Yeah.
it one of those venues, or was it a more low key venue, or was it one of these like staple venues?
It wasn't a staple venue still. It was
Yeah.
like it was just like it was a staple event.
It was the
Okay.
event itself.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
And I think
yeah.
that's what we're seeing more of, where it's like people are following artists and DJs and promoters more so than the actual venues.
The weekly club that I just go to all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like hit or miss now, you know, or like we only go there on Sundays or Saturdays.
And respectfully, we lost bare black clubs. You know what I mean? So yeah, the white man, you guys could lose Sneaky D's still.
Okay, but is it black clubs? Because in the end of the day, the owners of the clubs in Toronto were never black.
Okay, clubs that cater to urban markets.
So I think what you might want, and I'm not sure, what you might want to be saying is less black promoters. Because in the end of the day, they don't own the club. So it's the promoters to make the parties, right?
It's like they're bare black promoters.
So then what do you mean?
No, I'm saying like, okay, government got shut down a lot, fiction, like
Yeah.
this pure like staple urban spots that people used to go to, but it got like the same thing that's happening in Sneaky D's that happened to those places, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just feel like it's just your guys' time now.
Yeah, and government also was a place for like techno or like EDM type shit. That was the move. I used to go there for like the hip hop parties and the freaking the house parties. You know what I'm saying? The
But
house music parties.
You were there for ulterior. You were making money.
Yeah, but I was also having fun. I was enjoying myself. I was picking up girls. I was dancing and shit like that. Like it was a good time, fam.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing now is just more capitalism playing out. And like you said, it's just like big bang, take little bank. If you have a plot of land that I want, I'm going to wait on it until you sell it to me. There was one guy, he owned this plot of land in Woodbridge, close to Wonderland. They kept wanting to expand. They kept offering. Eventually, he sold it for like tens of millions of dollars to Canada's Wonderland, right? So I think Sneaky D's might play that move where it's like, yo, like we're not making as much money as we were before. Like it's kind of on the downslide. So let's just like cash out. Even Fillmore's. You seen what happened with Fillmore's?
Yeah, they're closed.
Yeah, they closed,
Yeah.
and they're gonna develop. I believe they're gonna develop housing there.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's community housing or a private corporate development.
It's gonna be another condo.
But yo, there's so many condos that are empty right now, and like locals aren't even buying condos like that. It's these foreign investors.
Let's get to that, bro. Because like, fam, like, all right. Yes, I understand. Okay, a club is not as important as, let's say, or maybe a developer doesn't think a club is as important, but you're developing more places for who to live. Like the amount of people who are renting or getting places these days are at an all-time low.
But the rent is going down.
Yes, because nobody's renting places.
But I feel like that's a good thing. Like it's gonna start leveling out where people are gonna be able to. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be affordable, but it might be a little more accessible.
Yeah,
You know?
it's like they have to lower their prices if they want to have a tenant.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's not by design. That's by mistake, because they're building a whole bunch of places that are not getting inhabited. So, okay, it's going to bring the rent down. But why are you building all of these places that aren't getting inhabited? Or just inhabit them. If you're going to build a place, then put the homeless in them.
Well, speaking of foreign investors, I believe this is like late COVID, but pure like of those Chinese billionaires were building up a lot of those condos that were finished like maybe like 2023. And then I guess Canada made a new rule where like Chinese billionaires, they're not allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why a lot of the places are empty, because people had a plan where like, oh, we're gonna go to Toronto or like around like Canada and build up these places. And then legislation changed. So it's like, fuck, we can't even run that play no more.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not only that. They weren't only developing places. They were buying out condos and renting out apartments and like had them like ghost tenants, basically.
Yes. Okay. So I have two stories about this. One, when I used to live in Fort York, we had an owner who was a Chinese guy. And 1 month he tried to like increase the rent by a certain amount, but thankfully the building that we were in was still part of that rent controlled era, right? So we kind of paged him about it, and then he kind of gave us back pay for all the extra rent he charged us by illegally hiking it, right?
Wow.
But I know a girl who's currently renting from a Chinese dude. This building is not rent controlled. He increased her rent from $2,500 to $8,000.
Wow.
Well, she said she was going to leave anyways, but he could legally do that. And obviously it's probably because he wanted her out. Maybe he wanted one of his friends to live there. Maybe he wanted to live there. But like the legal ability to just hike it up that crazy.
Is that legal though? Like,
it is technically legal. Like she spoke to a real estate agent because the condominium was developed after the rent control period.
Was her lease like about to finish?
Yes. So when they're about to renew the lease, he's like, "Hey, the new price is $8,000 from $2,500."
I'm doing that. If I watch out my crib, 10 bands.
That exactly. And it's like, if you really want to pay, you can pay. But then you get into the ethical aspect of it, where it's like, should you be allowed to do that? Technically, because it's your property, you should be allowed to do a lot of things. But we also know that tenants have their rights here too.
Yeah, and that's not even smart in these days and times, because if I was her, I'd be like, all right, well, I'm just going to leave and get a place for less than $2,500 because rents are going down.
Well, she was going to leave anyways, but I think just the sheer ability that they can do that is pretty insane.
They're trying to do it in this building.
I don't think, okay, like let's say
that much. I feel like there should be like a reasonable amount that matches inflation that you should be allowed to do.
Let's say I have a crib or whatever. I have a crib at, let's just say Dufferin and Queen.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Drake ends up shooting like Iceman Part 5 right at the crib type shit. You know what I mean? So now it's like a historical landmark type thing, you know? I can't just now decide, okay, yo, the rent here is not $1,500 no more. It's 5 bands if you want to live here. Type shit. I can't do that.
No, you can increase based on whatever value you see fit. But
You know
I think the main MO of this was, I'm going to get rid of this person, so I'm going to increase it to like an extreme amount. I just think there should be like, there usually is legal limitations on how much you can increase the rent.
There used to be
your tenants.
That's why it's like what you are doing, what you would be cool with is cool now. A few years ago, you weren't allowed to do that. You were only allowed to raise the rent based on what the person is already paying. So you could raise it like 10% or whatever based on what they're already paying. But then when they cut that above guideline condition, I forget exactly what it is, AG something, right? But it's the above guideline exception or whatever that they're allowed to do now, where they could just, whatever your rent is, we could just change it to whatever we want. That's where we're at now.
And I think one principle favors tenants, like the previous one, and one favors homeowners.
Yeah, in Montreal or in Quebec, they're still doing that. Like for my tenant in Quebec, I can't just like raise her rent like $2,000. I have to raise it based on what she's already paying.
But the way how I see it, like, okay, the lease is over. If the contract expired, we're gonna have to write a new contract. You know what I mean? Like that means new terms. Like whatever was pre-existing doesn't exist anymore.
Right. But if you have a tenant that's already there, you can't charge them a new rent on the old ways because their contract is over. You can't be like, okay, now it's like $5,000, $8,000.
I think what you'd have to do is you'd have to legally terminate their lease, and that requires a certain amount of advance notice, like 3 months or 4 months.
But if the lease is about to end, is it going to be terminated legally regardless?
No. If she wants to renew, then she has an option to renew.
Usually, yeah, they're in the right to renew.
Yeah.
But I hear what Natural's saying too, just in general, like if you're a landowner or homeowner, it's your property. If I want to give you a ridiculous price, I can do that. But I just think previously in most Canadian provinces, there's guidelines to how much you can increase the rent, and we're seeing that diminish because of the prominence of these foreign investors, I think.
And if you want to be able to be successful in real estate also, you want to make sure that you don't gouge every person that's going to be taking one of your properties. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think he was gouging every person. I think he's just gouging that girl. I don't know what she did.
Because what if she's like, yeah, I'm not gonna pay $8,000 or whatever, but then he rents to a Chinese person for $2,600, $2,700.
That's what he's probably gonna do.
Literally. So I think that's where the ethical aspect comes into play, where it's like, I know you're not gonna rent this for $8,000. Maybe he's gonna do Airbnb, and he's like, yo, that's how much I would have made on an Airbnb. But you can kind of read between the lines and say, okay, you're trying to renew her lease for $8,500. But because it's your property, you can do whatever. Actually, I like these tenants. I'm gonna bring it back down to 27 for these guys.
Yeah, maybe she was making too much different noises in there that he didn't like.
It's likely. I don't know. I'm joking.
We love hip hop.
If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to check out these other videos on the screen and make sure to like and subscribe.
We love hip hop.